Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever you are, whatever you're doing, and welcome to another episode of Media Matters for Anfield Index. It was supposed to be a nice quiet night, wasn't it? All the players were there for the PFA Awards, the trophies were being handed out, but a couple of statements later, and it's very, very different. There's, of course, ingoings, outgoings. There is really not long until the end of the transfer window. And so we needed to get a patch journalist on after last night, and we turned to the young, the renowned, the respected Mr. Lewis Steele. How are we, sir?
Yeah, I'm all right. You might be able to tell I've got a bit of a sore throat, so if I start croaking halfway through, apologies, but all good. Looking forward to talking about the drama of last night, which was annoying because it didn't come till quite late, did it? Why couldn't you have done that at midday?
Yeah, I was thinking that. My lad went back to school last night. I could have done without sort of being all the things going on. A bit earlier would have been better for everyone. But he obviously didn't care about that. He's got business to air. And we've got to talk about these Isak statements, Newcastle's retort to it as well, Lewis. I mean, This one, you put it out late. And just in case you're unaware, there you go. Need to charge your battery on your 5G there for your statement. But a couple of things to pull out with this. I mean, there's obviously why he wasn't there. That's not the big thing people are interested in. It's this. I kept quiet for a long time where others have spoken. The silence has allowed people to push their own version of events, even though they know it doesn't reflect what was really said and agreed behind closed doors. And he talks about the reality, and he ends it with, when promises are broken and trust is lost, the relationship can't continue. Sounds a bit like Love Island, this, doesn't it? That's where things are for me right now, and why it's in the best interest of everyone, the change, not just myself. I mean, what did you make of this?
I think the whole thing is just an absolute mess at this point, and it has been for a while, to be fair. I think Isak believes that Newcastle have made him promises that he can leave this summer, and they're now not living up to them promises. So I think he has every right to be annoyed. Whether I would have written that statement if I was him is a different thing, but it must have been quite awkward for him sitting there while the saga's been going on. He's just sort of sitting in the background, the main character that we don't hear from. But I don't really think anyone comes out of it looking brilliant, really, the club or the player. I think obviously there has been promises made, but there's two versions of the events, and probably the truth is somewhere in the middle. But there's been a lot of claims and counterclaims and lies, and it's a mess. It'd be a good documentary, though.
Yeah, it does feel like this has got Netflix written all over it at some point, hasn't it, for a docuseries type of one. And you're right, probably the truth always tends to be somewhere in the middle. And Liverpool fans have taken this in different ways. Some of you know will have gone, this is great. This is the end game now. They're going to sell him, of course. This is all just winding to it. Some have gone the other end of the scale and gone, oh, I suppose they're going to dig their heels in now and everything like that. This is going to make it impossible. Are we in the middle still? Has this moved it up or down the barometer?
It's certainly moved it, but I'm not really sure which way it's moved it. It's as I said last time I was on it, Newcastle say he's not for sale, but then say he is for sale at this price, which is just bizarre to me. So maybe if they can get them players in, then I still think they'll sell him. It's just a case of every day that goes by, the chances of the move happening naturally do go down. So I think people have been asking me on Twitter for a percentage of it happening, and I don't really have one, but all I can say is it is going down with every day that ticks on by. But I think Newcastle have tried to shut the door completely on this saga, and if anything, they've left it ajar still by what they've said.
Yeah, I mean, this statement, and we've got to go into this one because this was the response, the retort, if you want to call it that. And yeah, they say they're disappointed, say, no commitment has ever been made by a club official that Alex can leave Newcastle United this summer. So we'll pick up on that bit shortly. It's the bit here where we do not foresee these conditions being met, because they are talking about the conditions of a sale this summer not transpired. And yeah, there's a bit about a proud football club, but it's important to say for this, because I saw some people quote it, oh, that's them saying it's not for sale. It's definitely not that, is it?
No, I think the way I read it is that Newcastle want that 150 million that's been quite widely quoted. Liverpool have bid around 110 and maybe would be willing to meet in the middle somewhere. But as I say, Newcastle, I don't blame them for taking this stance, because he is their best player and best asset at the end of the day. But I think it's gone too far now. So at the start, fair enough, say he's not for sale because they don't want to sell him. But by this point, surely they must be thinking we need to get rid now, and sort of try and shake hands with Liverpool on in that halfway ground, because it's clear that Liverpool and Isak both want the deal to happen, and he doesn't want to play for them anymore. So they need to cut their losses. And I think Newcastle's stance has forced Isak to be to sort of sully his reputation with the Newcastle fans, and I'm sure he didn't want it to get to that level. I'm sure he has a lot of respect for the fans, but it has got messy now, and there is only 11, 12 days left of the window. So let's see what happens. But a lot of it is based on Newcastle's incompetence that they can't sign a striker, because they've had all summer to do it. They've had all year to plan for. They should have always had a backup plan for if Isak wanted to leave, even if he didn't tell. Even if they are correct and he didn't tell him he wanted to leave, that they should have still thought that someone might want him based on how good he is. So I think Newcastle have only got themselves to blame.
Yeah, it just seems like they've had such a disastrous summer, although they're trying to paint it a different way. Depends how people look at it. There was a question I wanted to ask that Essex Red has put in there about, we'll have to hand in a transfer request. Is this the new modern football version of a transfer request? Because there is no fax machines and things anymore. The fact that we have to tweet it and do it this way, or is that still an installment in the saga that could follow?
I mean, I pretty much view this as a transfer request, and I would say his actions should be classed as a transfer request before then. Whether it's an official thing in writing, I'm not sure whether that actually has to be done. I remember a few years ago when Harry Kane was trying to leave Spurs, he refused to train and then sort of buckled after 2 or 3 days and went back, and that was the end of that. Isak is standing firm in his stance. But it'd be interesting to see what will happen if in a month's time he's still at Newcastle. What does he do? Does he still continue to just sit on his own in his house and not train? And I don't know. It's just so messy, because surely if he does refuse to play, then Newcastle will have some sort of legal case on their hands. So it's a whole stupid situation. But I still think if Newcastle had any sense, they'd just say, oh, thank you very much, Liverpool. We'll take your 120 million and we'll buy 2 brilliant players with that. And we'll get rid of a player that doesn't. If he doesn't want to be there, then let him go. If it was, if a Liverpool player was forcing the way out, I think a lot of people would say, and Slot would probably say, well, if you don't want to play for us, then we don't want you either. So off you go. So let's see what the next week brings.
Time is ticking, like you say, and it is popping up. You've probably heard this quite often, or people asking you, I'm sure, on various social media. This expiration of his protected contract period, this famous or protracted Article 17. I mean, surely we're not going to get to that stage where legal parties are going to be engaged and, court cases and that. It doesn't feel like it'll get to that, surely.
Yeah, it doesn't feel like it will, but the way that it's getting so messy, it's in effect, it's someone who's under contract refusing to work. So if in any other line of work, if you worked at a pub and you didn't want to turn up and pull pints, you just off you go. You'd just be sacked.
Yeah.
So I'm not saying that Isak, it's got to that with him, but there could be something like that on the horizon. I'm not sure. That's why I just think it's best for every party, Liverpool, Isak and Newcastle, to just get rid of him and everyone move on from it, because it's just got messy, as I say.
Yeah, it does feel that way. It's a saga now. There's no other way of putting it. And because you said the chances are going down day by day, obviously many people still expect it to happen. People are looking and saying, Liverpool are a smart club. Where are the contingencies? Like maybe we'll start to hear names. So, I've got to ask you, contingencies, any names, hearing anything around it at all?
No, no, it's quiet. It's very quiet, which does still make me think that Isak is the one. Whether I don't think Liverpool have given up on him yet, and I think that he is that dream signing. And I think obviously everyone thought Federico Chiesa would leave. That now seems unlikely. So that's almost like one added into the mix. But obviously, if Isak, Liverpool are never the sort to sign someone for the sake of it, and I don't think there is a good enough number 9 on the market if Isak is not the one. But as I said earlier in the summer, what they did want was a versatile forward who can play across the front three, and maybe they will go in for someone. But at the moment, it is quiet in terms of names. So maybe one will just be plucked out of thin air next week, because this time last summer, no one knew that they were going to sign Chiesa. His name wasn't even mentioned. So, and that one all got wrapped up within 2 or 3 days. So maybe that'll happen now. So let's see. I did like Lucas Semenyo on Friday night, by the way.
By the way, yeah, I think we'd all fancy him. Yeah, multifunctional, the way he's playing, absolutely. And I suppose that in terms of dominoes, the chain, the way it's all linked together, Visser is the one that keeps being linked with Newcastle, and people are reporting on that daily. If that one happens, that Newcastle do get Visser, they've got Jacob Ramsey as well. Will that be enough, you reckon, if Liverpool show up with the cash, or doubts around that one?
Well, as I say, with the door being left ajar and Newcastle trying to slam it shut, I think if they get one striker, I think Liverpool might just test their resolve, because from all the reporting from the Newcastle end, it's very clear that Newcastle themselves have been telling people we need 2 strikers to even consider letting him go, or 2 forwards. But I think if they get one, then Liverpool might just put in a little offer and see what happens. But surely they can't go on like this and not sign a striker. Surely they're going to have to get one from somewhere, whether they just need to up the money for Visser, surely. Or because they're in the Champions League, but they're not going to do very well in that, and they're not going to get back in the Champions League if they don't have a number 9. So surely they're going to have to stump up the cash in the next week.
It does seem absolutely insane. And to be honest, there's only a few weeks of the transfer window left. So we should find out some answers soon enough. And of course, we're going to ask you about other names as well. It can't all just be Isak. The other name that comes out, which I know you've done videos and bits on, Mark Guéhi, Crystal Palace captain. It was interesting that David Ornstein had this in his deal sheet yesterday about the market opportunity, that if it's not Guéhi, it does seem like there won't be another centre-half after Giovanni Leone. And literally this one as well, if he leaves Palace, Guéhi only has eyes for Liverpool. Is that your understanding, that Guéhi is literally Liverpool or nothing? And are we still at haggle situation with Palace?
Certainly this summer it's Liverpool or bust. I think that it's very unlikely, if he does stay this summer, I think it's very unlikely that he'll sign a new contract. And then it's just whether Liverpool are still at the table this time next year. I think, realistically, I think it would probably be, I don't know if they need him now. So it might even be worth waiting and getting him on a free next summer. Almost maybe doing a bit of a deal with him behind the scenes to get him on a free next summer. But I was sort of told last week that that they were closing in on making a deal. And then something just happened. I think Steve Parish just thought, actually, hold on a minute, let's see what we can do with this. But as I've said on here before, this is their last chance to sell. And obviously Palace, they're a decent sized club, but they are a selling club, and they know they're a good club as well. They know their sort of place in the food chain. So I think they do need to sell him. But the only problem is, if they're selling Eze as well, are they really going to want to sell their two best players in the same week with not really that much lined up in terms of replacements? But I do think, it's Liverpool or bust. He wants to come now. It's just whether Parish will budge on that 45 million valuation, and it is, and you do have to take him and Eze together, because if they weren't selling Eze, then I think he would definitely say, all right, we'll do a deal. The fact they've got money coming in for Eze means they don't need any more money coming in. So again, a weird one, the Guéhi deal, but he definitely wants to move, and Liverpool are still lurking in the background. Or maybe more than in the background. They've held more talks in the last few days. It's just whether they can sort of meet halfway and shake hands.
I suppose with incomings, before we move to the outgoing side, it does feel like Liverpool don't like the yellow tie jobs. We're not a deadline day club, don't they? They want to be smart, get their business done early. But it does seem to be the case from everything that's coming out. Isak and Guéhi are the two. There doesn't seem to be any alternatives, and it might be right down to the deadline for these two.
Yeah, I think it probably will be. Because I think I said on it was probably on it. It might have been on my own channel about a month ago that the Guéhi one is one that could have gone right down to deadline day, and it looks like it probably will. And yeah, they signed Chiesa late last summer. The summer before, was it? They signed Gravenberch quite late in the window.
Yeah.
The summer before, I can't remember, to be fair, but they definitely signed Endo and Gravenberch in that last week of the window, or last 2 weeks. Gravenberch definitely, because I remember I was in the pub writing it up at 9 p.m. or something. And Chiesa was a last-minute thing last summer, so I don't think they're against doing the yellow tie deals. And if it means that they can get a better deal, I think it's worth the wait. The Isak one obviously is just going to keep rumbling on. But, if Newcastle suddenly can pull the finger out and get them two strikers, then I'm sure Liverpool will just put the money on the table. And if Palace show any inclination to reduce their asking price, then again, I'm sure Liverpool will do it, because they want Guéhi. They do like him, and they are bearing in mind the fact that Virgil is not getting any younger, and Konate is still not resolved his contract situation. Gomez is injury prone, and Leonie's only 18. So maybe that Guéhi would be nice, especially when you look at his own injury record, his status as an England international, a good leader. He's the Palace captain, won the FA Cup. So I think 35 million is a very good deal if they can do that. But it's just whether they think we don't need him. We're not desperate for him. We can get him on a free this time in 12 months. Might be better for the finances, but let's see what happens.
Get your yellow ties ready, people, by the sounds of it. It feels like it's going to go that way. And I'd actually give a shout out to this. That was a good article, and it is getting ignored a little bit of how well Liverpool sell, especially when you look at other clubs who aren't selling that well in the marketplace as well. So we've got to turn towards sales. I mean, Harvey Elliott, 1,001 links after the Euros, mention of Red Bull and different bits. This just sounds like it's going quiet a bit on Harvey. Is that one that could rumble right down to deadline day as well?
Yeah, it's gone a bit quiet this week on Harvey, because a few clubs showed an interest last week and the week before. But when I last asked, there's been no official offers or no new contact in the last 2 or so weeks. So I don't know whether a club would be willing to pay that 40 to 50 million that Liverpool want. But maybe it's a case of, and also Harvey has to agree to the deal as well. He can't flog him to somewhere for the sake of flogging him. One of the clubs that are in for him is Palace, of all people. So maybe that could be an interesting thing. Just saw an email just come through. Alan Shearer's statement on Alexander Isak's statement. So that'll be nice, interesting reading when I finish this call. I'm sure he's sure he's happy. But yeah, Harvey's gone quiet. And again, Tsimikas, they've not had much in terms of bids yet. So, but they have masterminded selling players this summer. Some people will say maybe they've sold one too many players, but that has sort of enabled them to spend so much money. So it swings and roundabouts. If they hadn't sold Diaz, for example, then maybe they wouldn't have had the money to sign whoever. And if they hadn't sold Ben Doak, then the balance sheets wouldn't have been the same to spend so lavishly. So they would have known they were selling all these players months ago. And they've done well to get as much money as they have for some of them.
Yeah, no doubts about it at all. And yeah, Alan Shearer, who criticised Milos Kerkez in his role in the last 2 goals when he was off the pitch as well. So I'm sure that'll be a riveting read for you when you get to it. And you did mention a couple there that Doak, I mean, that seems a great bit of business to get 25 million for a guy that I think it was 600 grand he was originally. And the last one I did want to talk about, because this is the full switch around of the summer. Chiesa was, we've talked about this, it all seemed inevitable he was departing.
Yeah.
You said there that line, had they sold one too many? Is that the case, you think, why Chiesa's maybe staying? Or is it just circumstances or something different?
It's probably a bit of both. And I still wouldn't say it's 100%, but it does seem more likely now. He obviously scored on Friday. He won against Liverpool. So that certainly doesn't harm his chances of Slot wanting him to stay. Slot spoke after the game. I asked him, does this mean Chiesa will stay? And he did sort of smirk when I asked him, which sort of made me think at the time, like, yeah, he's getting sold tomorrow, isn't he? But then he follows it up by saying it doesn't, something along the lines of what I just said, it doesn't harm his chances, the fact that he scored, contributed so well off the bench. So maybe his role is more of a sort of impact sub, but he certainly didn't do enough last season, and he's got a lot of people to prove. I know the fans love him for various reasons, but on the pitch, he does have a lot to prove. But yeah, in terms of selling one too many, they are still light in that front three. You know, how much can you rely on a Rio? What happens if Hugo Ekitike gets injured? Questions like this. I wouldn't have been surprised if they kept Ben Doak until deadline day or until they got to sign him, but obviously he's gone now, so that won't happen. So yeah, I do think they're a bit light, but Slot does have a knack of making things work, because obviously last season we all said they're a bit light in midfield, as I said I think last week, and no one's talking about that now. So maybe he'll do the same with the forward line if they don't sign anyone, but I still think that they will be trying as hard as they can to sign a forward between now and the deadline next week or the week after.
Does it feel that way? Time will tell on that one. And I suppose we should really, that there's a massive game coming up. But before we sort of delve into that, I mean, there's so much been spoken about that Friday night, as you mentioned, Bournemouth, 2 up, 2-2, 4-2, a Chiesa special, Anfield ringing around. And people have analysed various bits around individual performances. What were your biggest takeaways from Friday night just gone?
The biggest takeaways were that Hugo Ekitike is very good, but the defence still needs a bit of work and fine-tuning, I think, because first half they were okay, but second half I thought Bournemouth were well deserving of being level, and at that point I did actually think Bournemouth might have gone on and won it. They also, I would say, they also looked a little bit tired, and I thought the same in the Community Shield. But obviously, that is something that will change with time and play more regularly. Kerkez doesn't seem to have properly settled into that position yet. So they're the negative things. There were a lot of positives, though. As I say, Ekitike was good. I thought McAllister played well on his return. Gakpo, lovely goal. Salah, obviously quiet in parts, but started the game and finished the game very well, I thought.
Yeah.
I thought the centre backs did look a bit shaky though. Canate especially, not just for the goals, but also he gave the ball away a bit easy a couple of times. But Bournemouth are a good team, so
Right.
they were always going to have spells, especially like Iraola. They're a very fit team, I think Slot described them as. So it was never going to be an easy game to start the season. But that Newcastle game that we mentioned there, that'll be tough. It'll be emotionally charged, won't it? So obviously they don't have a forward, Newcastle, but I think St James's Park is always a tough place to go at the best of times. Struggled there last season and the season before, I seem to remember. So yeah, it'll be a tough game that, and Newcastle players are going to be bang up for it. I'm sure Bruno Guimaraes and Joe Linton, they're not going to be holding back. They'll be lumping into them tackles. So tough game. If they win that, then it's a very good start to the season.
Does feel that way, yeah. They are just going to, not being derogatory to Newcastle, they're not trying to start more wars with them, but they will look to make it as physical as possible, won't they? And I suppose with that, we're thinking a little bit of the lineups and what might happen. First question, midfield. Ryan Gravenberch's got to come straight back in, hasn't he?
Yes, because I think that was one of the weaknesses of both the Community Shield and Friday. And I think it's the biggest compliment to Gravenberch is that when he's not there, you can really tell. McAllister obviously settled it slightly, but he got tired in the second half. And then, I think I'd definitely be playing Gravenberch and McAllister together on what day is it? Monday. And then he's got a decision to make. I would still go with Wirtz personally. I know a lot of maybe more non-Liverpool fans have been giving him a bit of stick for his Premier League debut. Yeah. I didn't think he was actually that bad. I just thought he was a bit quiet. But definitely bring in Gravenberch. And then maybe he brings in Robertson at left back. I'm not sure. Just because of how emotionally charged the game will be. Does he want that more experience? And the fact that Robbo has played next to Virgil for, years, and Corquez and Virgil don't have that sort of link up yet. But let's see what Slot comes up with.
It's interesting because you do wonder against Elanga's pace whether he fancies Corquez instead of Robbo, which you mentioned. There's the experience then. And you mentioned keeping Wirtz. I suppose the question is, Gravenberch's going to come in, of course. Who might make way? Do you see Wirtz shifting left and Gakpo going out? So all four midfielders are on the pitch in that sense, or any different from that?
It's a real tough one because I do think Szoboszlai is really good in these sorts of games where Liverpool are under the cosh a bit because he puts such a good shift in off the ball. These sort of selection headaches are why Liverpool wanted. It's a good thing, basically. It's not, it's a good thing because last season you thought who actually comes in if one of the midfielders get injured, it felt like a downgrade. Now there's 3 positions and 4 of them, unless he comes up with something like he did at the Etihad last season with the sort of split strikers and Wirtz and Ekitike. But definitely would. I think Wirtz is one of the best players, so you want him on the pitch. Whether that means dropping Gakpo or dropping Szoboszlai, I'm not sure. Or even I wouldn't drop Ekitike based on how well he's played last 2 games. So it's a tough decision. Maybe McAllister misses out and Szoboszlai stays in just because he's more fit. But I think definitely Gravenberch first name on the team sheet alongside Alisson, Virgil, the obvious ones, Salah, and then Slot has a big decision to make. I've sort of gone through the pros and cons of each one and sat on the fence with a little bit, but that's mainly because I'm not sure either.
Yeah, true. Very politician style answer. We'll try and be a bit more direct with the questioning for the last few then. I mean, right back, as it stands, and I'm hoping you're going to give us maybe an update that, as we know, Jeremy Frimpong felt his hamstring. Arne Slot told us that, so he was taken off. Connor Bradley seems to be, we're a bit question mark, unknown on that. So Joe Gomez might be the only official fit right back at this moment in time. Any updates, or is it 2:30 tomorrow or some weird time tomorrow, the press conference, isn't it?
Yeah, it's at 2:30 tomorrow. So there's been a few. I don't have a definite update on Frimpong yet, but I probably will do by the time that presser starts. Certainly will by the end of it. Yeah, he felt his hammy and then he carried on and then he came off. So maybe that's a positive sign. But with it being so early in the season, I'm not sure Slot and the medical team would want to risk Frimpong's hammy, especially based on the fact that Bradley's injured.
Yeah.
And then you've got the problem that Joe Gomez has not played all year. So can he start a game and play full 90 minutes? So there's a lot of dilemmas in there. So let's hope for some good news on Frimpong. I have asked people and I've been left with 2 blue ticks, which normally a bad sign. But let's see what happens.
Yeah, maybe there's just a good surprise waiting. And I did say one more because he's come up a few times in the chat panel. Mr. Lewis Steele, Mr. Lewis Kumas. Is there an update on that to finish the show?
Yes, I do think he will leave. It's just a question of whether that's on loan or as a permanent. I think there's a load of clubs interested. I know Wrexham, Birmingham. I think Sheffield United. I know Sheffield United inquired earlier in the summer, but I'm not sure if they're still as hot on him. But I would say he'll leave for a Championship club, probably more likely on a permanent deal with a buyback clause.
Which will probably be a good move for him, a good move for us at the same time. So there we go, ladies and gents. It does feel like we may be getting towards yellow tie time. If it is Isak, if it is Guéhi, there don't seem to be many alternatives around. There'll definitely be outgoings, but how many, how much is still to be decided. What will be decided as well on Monday is under the lights of St James's, and it will be ferocious. A hell of a game, the Alexander Isak derby. All it leaves me to say as ever, for the time, the insight, and for answering all the questions, is much appreciated, Lewis.
As ever, appreciated from me too.
And ladies and gents, that was another Media Matters